My guest is Jeff Lienhart. He is the president of Adidas Golf. With the Masters coming up, I wanted to bring Jeff on the show. Jeff, thanks so much for joining me on Sports Business Radio. How are you?
Very well, and thanks for having me.
I love to start our conversations with a little bit of background on our guest. You've been in the industry for a while now, but why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to sit in the seat at Adidas that you're sitting in now?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent my career in the golf industry, starting with a brand that some may know, some may have forgotten, but Powerbuilt Golf back in the day. So, coming out of college, spent some time in Louisville, Kentucky, and Powerbuilt Golf, and then from there, actually, my wife was in the sports industry as well, and worked for a brand up there in Portland. And through her, I made connections, and then I started a journey there for 15 years at our competitor.
Okay.
And after leaving there, went back to Hillerick and Bradsby, which owned Powerbuilt Golf, for a short stint, and then ended up at TaylorMade Adidas Golf back in 2014. And so I've been here ever since, sort of living two lives: the one under the TaylorMade Adidas umbrella,
Right.
and then obviously when we sold TaylorMade in 2017, getting closer to the brand, and now just strictly Adidas.
And tell our listeners, day to day, what's your role at Adidas Golf?
Day to day, I'm responsible for the product engine, the commercial side of the business as well, and then what sits in the middle, which is our activation go to market teams. So day to day, it can be anywhere from working on a sales pitch or working with a customer to working on the product range and what's happening in that world with footwear, apparel, and accessories.
Okay, so you've been in the industry for a long time, as you just laid out. What are some of the biggest changes that you've observed?
I think the biggest changes, well, certainly the fact that there are more competitors than ever. I think on the footwear side, it's probably most evident with the surge of spikeless footwear.
Right.
It's allowed a lot of people just to add a spikeless outsole, nubs to their outsole, and call it a golf shoe, and all of a sudden you have a lot of new players in that space. And I think from the apparel side, I think there was a traditional uniform forever, and some of those rules have been bending a little bit over the last several years, where you're seeing street fashion coming into the game, and there's an acceptance of just really representing yourself, being yourself on the course, and that's certainly enhanced our ability to be creative, be true to who we are, Adidas, play with both of our badges, the badge of sport. And as well as the trefoil from Originals, and really celebrate the fact that you can be yourself, on the course.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, your shoes specifically, because like you said, there are a lot of spikeless shoes out there now. The game has changed. I've seen your Audi Power 26 that look like, really comfortable golf shoes. They're not your grandfather's golf shoes that you walked around in and were really uncomfortable. I love what you're doing with Adidas Originals, the Samba. I love, you have a lot of great offerings. How do you you've got these great athlete endorsers, Collin Morikawa, Ludvig, Åberg. How do you decide who's going to represent each of those kind of categories that you have with Adidas Golf?
Yeah, I mean, within our range segmentation, we certainly have the franchise or hero products that we'd like to celebrate on tour on the biggest stages of the game. And so typically we'll work with our athletes to figure out which shoes they're most inclined to want to wear. And through our testing protocols, which are pretty robust with those athletes, we're able to determine, which athletes will be in Tour 360 as an example versus Audi Zero versus Code Chaos. And we get a pretty good mix based on the number of athletes that we work with, a pretty good mix of all those shoes out there on the tours around the world. So it's, most of our tour athletes still like spike shoes, so that's obviously part of the equation as well. But in some cases, spikeless work just fine. And we know through our testing again that the traction elements in our spikeless footwear holds up to the standards of those athletes. So we have a pretty big menu. It's not quite the Cheesecake Factory menu, but there's a big menu that you can choose from.
No, I love all your offerings. I think it's very vast, like you said. I'm interested in how companies, not even apparel and footwear companies, but just companies in general, identify athlete endorsers. And hey, there's someone who's a match with our brand and our product. I'll ask you I had Collin Morikawa on this show not so long ago, about 6 months ago. He's diehard Adidas guy, loves it. It's authentic to him. Ludvig Åberg, authentic to him. He's in the originals. But when you look at this big landscape out there of men's and women's golfers, how do you identify the characteristics of the golfers you want to work with?
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because we've experienced sort of both ends of the spectrum where when we had a hard goods brand that we were a part of, they sort of led the charge, and then Adidas came along for the ride, and our business has grown exponentially as we separated and we're just ourselves identifying those athletes that best represented us as a brand. And so it has a lot to do with personality, certainly, and how they represent themselves. But it also, we want athletes that want to be a part of what we're doing. And so that's identified very early on. The other thing is we have a very good partnership with the AJGA. So at a very young age, we're getting to know the athletes. We certainly assess their the perspectives for them over their careers and where we think they can go. But as we get to know them in their youth and are working with them on product and having those discussions, it typically grows into something that's more significant, which obviously you'll see represented on all the tours.
Yeah. All right. The Masters is coming up. I'm always interested in the scripting process because I think some viewers think, well, they just pick something out of their closet and they put it on today, and these are the shoes and clothes they picked out, and here they are in a major. No, it's a lot more detailed and thought out than that. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how far in advance are you scripting out the product for the majors, and then what does that process look like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we're well over a year out when we're internally identifying what we would like the athletes to wear. And typically, I mean, our working relationship with the athletes is very collaborative where, we certainly pitch them on ideas and concepts where we want them to go. But then we let their personality actually also come through as they're evaluating that product and looking at what else is out there in our range for them to select from. So through that collaboration, well in advance, we're able to identify what they're going to be wearing on all 4 days. And then we're able to celebrate that through our marketing initiatives.
And then I would imagine they're involved in the process maybe of developing some of that product. If it's a year out, you have time to develop some of the product that, maybe they're wearing in the majors.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, the other thing that we would celebrate about our athletes is that we typically stick with them for a long time. So the feedback from 2, 3, 4 years back oftentimes leads to what's being produced and what's in the range today. And as a result of that feedback, certainly their input is there in the DNA of the product. And then, we do get it as we get in our creation cycle. We do certainly look for their inputs, and they will have a hand in addressing certain things about product that may not be right or something they're looking for. And obviously we bring those into the product itself that hits the market commercially.
I've been to a major before, at least it was a while ago, but I know, some of the companies like yourself, they have, for lack of a better term, a trailer there that's there to service the athletes. So when the Masters is coming up, if one of your golfers comes to you and says, hey, I need a new pair of shoes, or I need a different rain jacket or whatever, is that there to service them at the event itself?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, we get a lot of practice because every event, we're on site with the athletes and serving their needs. We will typically in advance give them product that they wear throughout the season, and then as it comes to the majors, we white glove service that. So we'll get on site early on in the week and hand over the product to them for that particular week. So they and obviously we'll capture some of that from time to time for content that we'll shoot on social media and other things.
Yeah, I love your Instagram account at Adidas Golf for those who want to give it a follow. All right, so now we've talked about what the players are wearing at the majors. If I'm watching this on TV and I'm like, I really like those shoes, or I really like that rain jacket or shirt or whatever, how long before I can go to retail and purchase that?
We will. What's on their backs is in store at that moment. So it's actually the best evaluation of return on investment you can possibly get. I mean, when one of our athletes is showing up well and playing well over a weekend, you'll typically see that translate into online sales, and obviously our retail partners as well will share with us successes that have occurred as a result of them being seen in that particular product. So that's when we know that the formula is working the way it should.
Do you have an example of that? I mean, I'm not asking for dollar figures, but can you remember an event where one of your golfers did really well and then, the following week you saw a big boom in sales?
Yeah, I mean, I can go all the way back to when Tyrrell Hatton wore a hoodie for the first time and Hoodiegate started over in Europe as a result of our product being on his back. But more recently, I would say last year's Masters, actually. Ludvig Åberg wore Originals for the very first time. It was our launch of Originals Golf. And we saw a fantastic sell-through with all of our retail partners as well as our own retail immediately following that event.
Wow.
And even during the event, for that matter.
Yeah. Originals, walk me through the decision to kind of incorporate that into Adidas Golf.
Yeah, I mean, it took time because the Originals brand is obviously coveted by the company for a lot of reasons. And we celebrate the sport, but also the culture born from it. And so with Originals, we're able to play on both sides of the spectrum where, we're a performance brand first and foremost. And you'll see that show up in Ultimate Tour and Ultimate Plus on that side of the ledger. But on the other side, the cultural component, that's where Originals really comes in. And it's more of a lifestyle play, but there's nothing that we build that is not conducive for and meant for the game of golf. But that, it really hits that sweet spot for the cultural elements that are entering the game.
I'm interested in retail versus online. How many people are going into golf shops at their local country club or even a Dick's Sporting Goods versus ordering online now? I would imagine you're able to track that.
Yes. And it's a pretty healthy mix, honestly. And it's the consumer that wants that, the immediate purchase and it's top of mind and they want to go after it. Obviously online sales are benefiting from that. But all of our retail partners and including ourselves have brick and mortar, which, we'll also be able to celebrate those moments and be able to capitalize on what's seen out there on tour with our athletes.
Yeah, it just seems like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but golf, the brick and mortar and the retail experience is still really important. I understand the people, like you said, that see something and they just want to have it right away. But for myself, if I go into a pro shop or I want to try it on, especially shoes, I want to make sure it fits the right way. If it's spikeless versus spikes, I want to get that feeling and understand that. So I still think, even though I know a lot more people are shopping online these days, I think for golf, the brick and mortar experience is an important one.
No, it absolutely is. And obviously it's depending on how you shop. Sometimes it's easier to shop in that environment where it's all right in front of you versus having to search for it online. But no, it's the one thing that we're also seeing right now is that there is this sort of hype around club logos. And so certainly the green grass channel is extremely important to us as we get, all that same product that's being seen on tour is in the pro shops at the same time, only with that club's logo on it. So with the fanfare around that's certainly a place where we're seeing success as well.
Can you explain that to our audience a little bit more for the people who aren't familiar with how that works?
Yeah. So with most, when I say green grass, I'm referring to the pro shop at the course,
right?
And whether it's a public or a private facility, most of those garments are actually embellished with the club's logo. And so it not only obviously does it feature our brand logo, but it will have the club mark as well. And right now it's a badge of honor for many people that they're able to say, I played at this facility or I played at this course, or at least they get the question of what is that? So it seems more than it has been in the past. It's a very important aspect of it today.
Yeah. I mean, I was just in Maui and, you go to Kapalua or somewhere like that. And you're exactly right. If you can get the garment with the logo on it of the course and Adidas, that's a pretty cool thing. I agree. I think people want that.
Yes, no doubt.
The overall growth of golf, I've seen the numbers, especially since the pandemic, and it seems like it's exploding in growth. More and more people out there playing golf. Are you seeing those same numbers? And are those translating into more sales for you? Again, not asking for numbers, but I'm just interested in general. Everyone I've talked to says golf is growing in participation and sales.
Yeah, we've experienced growth every year since the pandemic, and obviously that's when the surge of new participants kind of came to the game, and we continue to benefit from that and really celebrate that. So business is good, and yeah, we're continuing, and we're seeing that across footwear and apparel. The other thing that I think has happened at the very same time is the workplace has become more casual.
Right.
So the silhouettes that are offered in the game of golf, we're arguably we're selling to a lot of new consumers that aren't even playing the game, but our polo works for them at the office and our pants work for them at the office.
That's such a great point, and I'm happy that you said that. Someone who's leading a golf brand. I think the world has gotten more casual. I do an event called Sports PR Summit. People used to get on stage with suit and tie. Now they're getting on with fancy shoes and sneakers, and they're wearing, like you said, the 3/4 zip or the polo. So I would imagine that introduces a whole new audience that didn't exist before.
Oh, it absolutely does, and it's interesting. I mean, golf is certainly a lifestyle category. It's an aspirational category. And one thing that we've experienced as a global entity and having teams around the world representing Adidas Golf, even in those markets where golf is not a top sport being played, we're seeing a surge in our sales. So it's interesting to see that dynamic play out.
Overall, and I know this is a very broad question, what are some of your best-selling products right now? Is it the spikeless shoes? Is it hoodies? What are you seeing a spike in with sales?
Well, you referenced the Adi Power, which is new this year, or coming. It was re-entered the range this year. We're seeing a great deal of success there. A very comfortable, athletic, silhouette in golf shoes. At the same time, there's a lot of support behind the modern classics kind of coming back to the game, and we do have an MC family as well that is doing very, very good in the marketplace. And then on the apparel side, I would say we've always been very well known for our bottoms, and we have a new launch of the Ultimate Plus Bottoms program, trousers and shorts, and that's also doing extremely well. And then our women's business has always been high as a very successful element of our range also, and we're seeing success there.
Are you seeing the same growth for women's golf that you are men's golf?
In some ways, we're seeing more. If you're looking at a percentage basis, obviously the size of the business is not quite as large, but on a percentage basis, we see more opportunity there, and we're seeing a higher growth rate. And I think it's just based on where we are in each of those segments around the world.
So that leads me to my last question: is you look and you look, I've talked to people at all the sports and apparel companies, and I think one of the amazing things about your job is you're not thinking about what's going to happen next week. You're thinking about what's going to happen 2 years from now, 5 years from now. You're forecasting, you're really thinking ahead. And I would think that would be a real challenge. But as you think ahead, what are some of the areas of growth for Adidas Golf?
Yeah, I mean, certainly as we look at the golf category, and one of the things that we certainly deal with at Adidas is we're in so many different sport categories that there's a lot of gray area between those categories, tennis and other categories. But the biggest opportunity for us is honestly apparel, where there are no boundaries. Footwear is a little bit more defined. We're making a golf shoe, so it has some fencing around it. But apparel has no boundaries, and so we see the greatest growth potential there. Certainly see a lot of growth with the women's category, and we also see growth in the cultural side of our business with originals as well.
I would imagine. I think Patrick Mahomes is an Adidas guy. I would think that he likes golf. He's out competing in some of these match play tournaments. I would think having someone like him who isn't necessarily a golfer, but like you said, is an Adidas athlete, and him wanting to wear some golf stuff, that probably helps exposure too.
Yes, I mean, and Patrick's the best example of it. But throughout our portfolio of athletes that we work with in the brand, a lot of those athletes are crossover athletes. But Patrick happens to have a passion for the game of golf. We just recently renewed his contract, and as part of that, we were able to, and it was mutual. We both want to work with him as a brand, business unit, and he wanted to work with the golf side of the business in addition to the football team. So we do have this opportunity to work with him. There will be some things that will be hitting the market in the near future that will celebrate that relationship and that partnership with Patrick. And it will carry his sense of style and what he's looking for in golf product. But it's been fantastic working with somebody who is as passionate as he is, accomplished on the field, certainly, but so passionate about the game of golf and excited about working with us.
Jeff Lienhart, the president of Adidas Golf. Again, give them a follow on Instagram at Adidas Golf. Jeff, thank you so much. This has been informative. As we head into the Masters, a lot of our audience was very interested and curious about some of the things that go on behind the scenes leading into a major and just how the golf industry is growing in general. And I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again.